or if
And
they got a
then-
better plan or whatever.
There's a little puzzled how you can have these big PERS increases, but just 3% per year increase at the department level.
Well, it's only 1.1% PERS increase,
The PERS increase.
1.1 percentage points. So it's 27.87 right now, it's gonna go up to 28.9.
And then the following year 29, and then the following year 30, and the following year 32.
Okay,
Well, I guess the bottom line is, why is Palo Alto so much different than we are?
They have an unfunded actuary.
Really big,
Yeah.
they're much bigger than us.
We don't have it.
They have a huge fire department,
Mhm.
police department,
Both of them.
parks department, a lot of more department, their planning and building department is big.
Now, they're non-safety staff, if they've got police and fire, their PERS rates, and they've got a side fund, our PERS rate for police is 27.87. If they've got police and fire, their rates are not where we are, they're higher, plus actuarial unfunded liability on top of that, which we used to have, we don't have anymore. Ours used to be 39.9, it's down to 27.87.
Because of the side funds?
Because of the side fund. So ours is significantly less. So if they had a 39.9% public safety rate, that's pretty high. And then it's gonna go up 1.1 per year for 5 years. They're gonna be close to 50% pretty quickly.
Yeah, New York City's already, upside down. It was in the New York Times
Mhm.
last week about them too. I mean, they're paying more for their retirement benefits than they are for their salaries.
right.
And, it's just because they're huge. I mean, and I think Atherton, over the last 3-4 years, the finance committee, the council members who were, involved in looking at all of the finances, made some significant changes, to try to start to turn the battleship a little bit, from going off the cliff to, maybe to some smooth waters. And then our economy has
Yeah.
improved quite a bit. So,
Yeah.
Are we pretty well done?
Yes?
All right. The last item is the,
PERS pension policy.
The last item, I think we've kind of already been touching on it,
Well,
we discussed it.
this document was written to be unintelligible.
unintelligent.
Yeah. I mean,
I hope do I have to make a decision on this?
well, I made a decision when I got to about page 11, which was,
I got out and had another glass of wine.
yeah, I'd have to, which is, I don't know, I'd have to study it. But what is, the gist of this is they're talking about different rates at which to catch up from the unfunded
That's the smoothing portion.
smoothing portion. And then they talk about an actuarial evaluation of the assets as opposed to a market evaluation of the assets. I don't understand what that is. What is an actuarial if it's not mark to market, which I thought in the newspapers we've been reading sort of mark to market, that's improving somehow.
Yeah, that's actually what the consultant, Nikolai, when they were here at the last meeting, presented a report to this body, and they talked about the actuarial value versus the market value, and our plan being 85% funded based on what we should have versus what the market says we have.
No, you used that last sentence, I guess you lost me.
Well,
The market says,
market says our
Yeah.
portfolio is worth this, but we put in this, or we should have put in this, and so it should have the value of this, but it's actually valued here.
what do you mean by should have?
We put in the actual
We wish it
value.
had, or that's
We
what?
did,
Yeah,
but now the market value says this.
Oh,
And so that, I think that's where they're coming up with this smoothing portion,
Mhm.
is because of the market, they're going off of the market value.
Which has decreased.
It's picking back up, but it did decrease since, from 2008 with the crash, but they've recovered now up, they've up about, I think, 56.
And we're gonna be reevaluating that, right?
yeah, we have a value evaluation every
the
year.
reinvestment rate is very high.
Well, and that'll come out in November, the discount rate
Right.
is what, that's part also that we've discussed also. Not one was the smoothing to become, the funded, fully funded,
Well,
and then the rate, discount rate.
okay, you're saying actuarial, we should have put in this much, and we did put in this much, but that mean old market knocked it down to this much.
Yes.
Now, we have to deal with the reality that we're gonna have to either through investment returns or we have to build back up to paying our liabilities.
Correct. And that's the gap I was talking about earlier, that side fund trust is looking to close faster than CalPERS is.
Based upon their discount rate.
Based upon what the market value of our assets are, not their discount rate. So we're taking what we should have in order to be 100% funded versus what the market says we have, that gap
But the 100% funded is based upon a discount rate.
is based upon what we need to pay all of our benefits.
Or put,
Yeah.
no, there's a discount rate is on an assumption
Yeah,
of what
that's
our
right.
rate of return will be.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
7.75.
But it could be 7.25, or it could be 4%.
That's right. That's the thing that concerns me.
But it, I guess maybe I'm not understanding or not explaining it properly. We need small numbers, $100,000 to fund everybody's retirement moving forward. We know that if we had $100,000 today, our plan would be 100% funded.
Take it from the school.
Right. But instead, the market says we've only got,
100% funded on the assumption that we have a
Certain return.
certain return going forward.
In the future.
That's
Yeah.
right.
well, we're gonna get that every year. We're gonna get a comparison between market versus what we actually need.
But we're starting out at a very high assumption, I think. And so I think the shoe is gonna fall again sometime in the future.
Well,
Oh, I
and
see what
up
you're
and down,
saying.
if they change the discount rate, it will fall down to the extent it's significant.
Well, what discount rate would you feel comfortable for us to be using,
That which FASB says corporations ought to use,
which is 6%, 4%?
it's more like 6 or something.
Uh-huh.
There are various rates they can
Mhm.
get away with.
So we're really overinflating our
We're assuming a future return.
return at about,
Too optimistic.
1.5%.
That's the thing that concerns me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so and if we're doing that 1.5% on a, $16 million potential liability or something, that number over a horizon date of 15, 20 years?
CalPERS,
Yeah,
they're 50 years.
well, for our retirees, I mean, how many of our people are going to be really retiring in the next 5 years or 10 years? I don't know.
Few.
Very few. I mean, so I guess what is our exposure if we do use the CalPERS discount rate instead of what we think is a more realistic? I mean, what is our exposure? I guess that would,
Yeah, because I think with the age brackets of the people you have 10 to 15 years before it becomes an issue. But we looked at the other cities, we're within reasonable boundaries. There's nobody lower than 6. Everyone else is actually higher. I disagree, I agree with you, the rate should be less, but you also have to look at what other city and counties are doing. You can't, you have to make that mental adjustment, to say, okay, there's a reason, that number is that number.
well, I guess
We
the
can
exercise
budget
might.
what we want, what we have
Yeah.
our way, which is what the previous gentleman said, you can always budget.
So could we do the exercise and use a 6%, just to kind of see what those numbers would look like? I mean, as to,
That was enough.
well, that's what I was hoping we'd get a donation or some external expert to
Yes.
look at it for us
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
advise us,
Mhm.
Okay, PERS is, Jerry and I just think, is being very optimistic about future returns.
Mhm.
I admit that's harder to sustain in the last month or so as the market.
Right, 24%.
Although, nobody knows what the market's gonna do, but I think there's reason for sensible people to think it may not
There's gonna be a factor.
stay that high because it's fueled by the Federal Reserve zero interest rate policy, so investors are saying there's no place else to go but the stock market. When the economy eventually turns and the Fed says, oops, we're gonna have to start selling bonds instead of buying bonds and interest rates, then who knows what's gonna happen.
Considering their investment strategy is a 50-year, considering their investment strategy is a 50-year plan,
Yeah,
you're looking from 1960, right,
yeah.
to 2010. You want to tell me you're not going to have at least a 10% average in return during that time frame? The answer would be yes. It depends on how long they run it out.
Mhm.
And that's the difference is you're looking at two different strategies. One is a 15-year issue because you have people coming into that, and you have 50-year investments here. Maybe that's the difference when they say actuarial versus market, I don't know.
But it's
They
scary
come up with
when
this
you,
great thing.
when you read this first page of this summary is that following market failure, 2008-9, overall funded status drops 60%,
Yeah.
or to 60%. So, I mean, that is a big correction. And we're left holding the bag, because first goes, you guys have to.
Well, where are we gonna invest these funds, on the side funds, has that been decided yet?
No, that was the
We're
one.
commercial
guys. Have we got an RFP on out yet on the
No,
investment plan?
No, this was just for discussion, we haven't gone anywhere down that track.
What do you have on there, haven't you funded some of the side?
No, that's the side fund on the CalPERS, we just pay CalPERS directly. That's the side fund that they set up with us a couple of years ago. We pay them directly. This is an exercise to show if the committee and the council likes to put additional money towards either OPEB or PERS, we would create a side fund and put it into a trust separate, that we won't keep it here, we'll put it into a PARP. So eventually, the thinking is once, let's say, PERS says, okay, now your rate is this much, and this is what your market value is, unfunded is, we can say, well, all right, thanks for letting us know, here's 10 million, we'll pull it out of the trust and pay CalPERS that portion, and it's that to fund it. And that's the thought, is when they come up and say that, you owe us this much, or now your value, well, we put some money aside. We can take that from the trust and put it into.
That's our own little rate smoothing.
Yeah, that's ours, of them, rather than them saying, okay, now your rate's this, we'll say, okay, well, thanks for that, but we'll give you 10 million, now recalculate, what's our rate gonna be?
Well, when do you expect the council to make a decision on that?
Well, we would expect the finance committee to kind of discuss it and take it around. You don't have to make a decision this year, you don't have to make one next year. It's certainly something we can,
We have done work on.
yeah, it's totally, town dependent what we want to do with it.
So, I think this is worthy of us, really looking at. I like the feeling of doing this, creating these these trust funds to accelerate the payment and to put money into those trust funds over and above our annual required contribution, our ARC. And how it's divided up, whether it's a straight line amortization or if it's, some other kind of formula, I understand a little bit better now that they just added, the same amount, and if I had looked at it more closely, I would have figured that out. But for a 10-year horizon, I think that's worth taking a look at. And I think that this finance committee, if we could maybe come together with some consensus that we could at least go to council and report out to council that we discussed it and we, agree that it is something that council should look into further, that, we would support something like this. Now, there's a budget study workshop on May 20th, Monday, May 20th, and it's like all day, right, Jared?
I don't remember.
Well, it's going to be several hours to go into all the detail of the budget.
When is this, what time
It's
is it?
Monday, May 20th, and it is, I don't have my phone, but I think it's 9 o'clock. I think it starts at 9?
I thought it was at 1
No,
o'clock.
that's
Oh,
the
it starts at
workshop,
1?
1 o'clock, yeah.
Oh, that's the other council workshop.
Yeah.
So it's only going to be, 2 or 3 hours.
It's starting at?
1 p.m. And so it's open to the public. It's a noticed meeting, and but between Now, and then is our council meeting on the 15th, and, we're gonna report out, so,
That's the regular.
regular council meeting. Mhm.
The decision on what to do with the additional funding for the OPEB and the park doesn't have to be made today, and I would suspect, as the mayor's indicating, that if this committee went to the council, we can provide that recommendation at the council, that this committee thinks doing something like this, however it's done, should be considered
Yes,
to some
Yeah.
degree, that the council's gonna turn around and direct it right back to the finance committee and say, okay, study it and figure out how we should do it.
okay.
But we'll also look at it on the.
That is unlike Stockton and Riverside, and these other folks. We just don't want to kid ourselves that our expenses are less than they are, and then suddenly we hit a
Right.
wall. We want to be sure we're, be prudent year by
Well,
year.
most of those Stockton people had their property taxes reassessed automatically every year down, and that really forced the problem rather than the expenses going up, it's the revenues coming down.
And our revenues here lag, the revenues for the
Our
property
property
taxes are
taxes
behind
like.
on reality.
Only 1 year.
So that's a
It's,
lot.
no, it's more than
It's more
1
than a
year.
year.
The woman that came and gave her the presentation, said it's 2 to 3 years,
It's,
actually.
it's a big
The
lag. So
reassess.
we actually have, as I said, the revenue number is lower than it should be. The expense number is higher than it should be. So the reality is, we have more to work with than, and so that little
Right.
fund is not a huge impact.
Yes. Yeah.
Purely on that fact.
Anyway.
We won't have that information till what? November? An updated
Tax rep.
tax
roll.
rep number?
An updated tax estimate for the next fiscal year will be December.
December.
Now, in your meeting on the 20th, you're gonna go through each department?
We'll go through exactly this presentation plus some additional slides, which will talk about the P&L for parks. It will also talk about, we'll go into more detail line item by line item within each department.
Including the police.
Yeah, including this. And we'll talk about the goals and vision stuff too. Very long, very boring meeting.
I'm very productive.
Depends whether you're mayor or not.
This slide wasn't in the one that came to me by email, I don't think, right?
Yeah, you mean this one up here?
Yeah,
I printed it out in mine. It's second to the
It's,
last.
yeah, it's
It was
right
the second
before
to the last
questions
page.
Or maybe, Mr. Anto, maybe it's in the back. Does your printer print front and back?
let's see.
Maybe it's the very last page.
Oh,
What'd you say?
I don't know.
If
Do we
not,
have
I
any other questions? We need to,
Yeah.
can we adjourn?
can give you this.
Do we have, oh,
You have an extra? I'll give you this.
oh, yeah, that's great.
We're 10 minutes past due here.
Let's see, do we have to set another date? Or-
Well, normally we've set up the second Tuesday of the month, every other month. So that would put us in July, which would be July the
Thank you.
July the 9th. I assume we get Joe Nation here then?
The plan was, he was, we were gonna have him here this time, but we didn't know that Alan was here. So he was on there,
So,
trying to work that out.
Can I do a request? Can we do it the following?
You on vacation?
Yeah, my daughter has dance, national dance competition in New York.
Oh, how exciting.
That week.
Okay.
I'll be gone the week of the 5th through the 13th.
That is the 4th of July, isn't
It is, July 9th is the 4th of July.
it? Weekend.
Would-
Well, it's
Yeah.
a Tuesday after the 4th of July.
Yes, it's Tuesday after the 4th of July.
So you want to go to the 16th?
Yeah, the following week I'll be back. We could do the 16th.
Yeah, I got an all day that day. I guess we go to Thursdays, the 18th.
Email each other?
Or if you, yeah, I can send out an email, and if you all want to get back to me by
Yeah.
the next week or so, what would be good? And then
Only
you
day.
give me some dates, and then I'll resend it back. These are the dates that are available, please choose. I'm sorry about that, it's just that week.
Okay?
Whatever I would think, I might be out.
All right, glad I could help.
All right. Recommended a motion.
Adjourn?
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody was here.